Welcome to Headroom, where we discuss all things essential to mental health and well-being. I'm your host, Jim Owens, a licensed professional counselor at Lansing Community College. Before we begin, I'd like to emphasize that this podcast does not constitute psychotherapy. It does, however, introduce you to some phenomenal people who have incredible ideas for you in your life. Having said that, let's get into the Headroom and begin today's conversation with Stephen McCorry, student at LCC.
Let's get it.
All right. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good this morning.
Very good. So introduce the listeners to who you are. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Stephen. I'm a father of two sons,
Nice.
10-year-old and 5-year-old. I'm a MC, like a rapper.
Nice.
I took a break this year
Okay.
to write a book, and that's done. So I just need to put like a couple finishing edits on that,
Okay.
and then publish it.
Okay.
So that's who am I? That's a hard question. Like,
Yeah.
what part of my identity do I?
I also think of it this way, like how do you describe yourself to people? So poet, musician, author.
Yeah, recovery coach, I guess, in this
Okay.
season. You know, that's it was funny because it was just a paper I was writing for one of our classes was asking about my identity, and I was like, well, it's my identity is more like the roles I play, and more specifically the verbs attached to those roles.
Okay.
So like who I am is very like context dependent.
Right.
Like in
It's like what you're doing, not what you are so much.
what I'm doing and not what I am. Yeah. Like I feel like what I'm doing is a lot more like closely accurate of like who I am.
Got it.
You know, because it's like stemming from that in some
Yeah.
way or another. And I was like, it also like depends on like, you know, how deep the conversation gets, you know?
True.
Yeah. Because like who am I? I'm like, you know, at the source of it is like love,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, we don't have to perseverate on that.
Yeah.
Just stick on that for forever. But I think it lets people know a little bit about who you are, where you're from. Like you said, you're a father. I think other students at the college can relate to being a parent. And where are you at in life right now? I mean, there's
So-
another big question.
so like usually I'm pretty good, right? Well, it definitely fluctuates, but like right now I think I'm in chaos. I was just talking with my friend about it this morning, and we were trying to, you know, find the root of that, right?
Yep.
Because I haven't done laundry in 2.5 weeks.
That's a little bit, that's okay. Yeah, I follow you.
Yeah, and that's just like one aspect. Like the van, the inside of my van, that's also communicating like something's going on.
I'm
my
just
guy.
picturing, with two kids, I'm picturing Cheerios and like bags of, what, is it kind of mess in there? Or what?
It's a little bit of a mess right
Okay.
now, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But like I was talking with my friend, like trying to find like what is the root of
Yeah.
like this. But where I'm at in life right now is I put a little bit of extra weight on my shoulders. You know, I just got promoted at work, and I also took on another job on the weekends.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, I'm going to try to take 3 classes this semester. And it's, you know, between that and the kids and like everything,
Yeah.
it's a little bit extra weight.
Yeah.
And I can feel it right now.
Yeah.
So I need to like take a breath and like really be a lot more intentional with each one of my movements right now to try to reverse the atrophy that's happening right now.
Yeah, because it's not only the feeling of the extra weight on your shoulders, it's showing up in the way you're living your life right now. Things are getting a
Yeah.
little messy in your personal life, basically, is what
For
you're
sure.
saying.
And it's interesting too, because like you know, I don't even know how to sometimes like what even to do. So like there's a lot of things to do and I'm not even doing one thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
that makes sense.
Well, there is some research in this. Like, the more options in front of us that we have in terms of things we need to do, the more that paralysis sits in.
Analysis paralysis.
It's a little bit of analysis paralysis, but it's also called the paradox of choice. And in fact, when you present people with a lot of options in front of them and you're like, pick anything, if there's one option, it's easy to pick. If there's 2 options, it's not so hard. One looks better than the other, you can kind of tell. But if you give like 15 things you need to do, I could clean my room, I could clean the van, I could do homework, I could prepare for this,
Yeah.
It's harder to try to figure
Yeah.
out like priority. What should I do right now?
Yeah, and I feel like that's so interconnected with like mental health of like what's the next thing I should do. And
Yeah.
if I know what the next thing I should do, I feel way better,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh yeah.
And just kind of like working down the list
Yeah.
of like, yep, I'm doing this, or
Yeah.
like So when I tell my kids like, hey, get in the van, we're going grocery shopping, and they're in the middle of like a Fortnite match.
Yep.
They're mad. You know what I mean?
You're ruining our life.
You're
like, I'm trying to get stuff to feed you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You're ruining my life. That's exactly their sentiments. But if I was like, hey, 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
okay,
we're going to be going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They might be like, but let me get one more kill.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But they're going to like, they're going to get in the van, not so like begrudgingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like we're the same way. Like
Mm-hmm.
like if we were like, hey, Steven, like tomorrow we're going to do this,
Mm-hmm.
do this, and then do this.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get there, there's not like as much resistance to it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I deem this as valuable to do, so I'm gonna do it.
Or are you saying it's easier if you can kind of see the path in front of you and each step you need to take? You got the muscle and the willpower to push through each of those steps as they come, but organizing the steps is a little more difficult.
I don't know if organizing the steps is difficult. I think that it's difficult to do that consistently, because it almost seems like, oh no, like I know what I'm doing. Right. I'll just do it. Right. Okay. But to actually sit down and like kind of give yourself expectations of what to expect for the next hour, day, week. Hopefully you can get up to like start planning months and years, at least some pieces of it. Yeah, it's another concept we have called begin with the end in mind, where you can kind of see the end. I know for myself, I'm back in school. I'm a student as well right now. And when I have a huge project in front of me to write, like I have a 10-page paper I'm working on right now, which isn't massive, but it's chapter reviews on a book. And I'm just like, I just got to do one chapter today. That's it. And I'll do another one tomorrow. And I'll do another one the day after. It's just like bit by bit. Yeah. And before you know it, I'll have written a precis, which is a summary of a textbook, a 10 or 12-page paper. That'll be done by the end of the week. But I'm only going to do it bit by bit by bit. And I can see that it'll be done by Friday. Yeah. Right now it's Monday. Yeah. I can see it'll be done. And so you probably feel good about like the momentum of it, right? Well, exactly. And I was going to say, just getting little pieces done at a time, you get that win, you get that little dopamine, and now you're like, all right, I got a little energy to hit the next project and get a little win there. See, and I think that's kind of like the point I was trying to get to, is that like when I have things like when things are happening, life seems easy, right? And I'm handling a lot. Yeah. But then when I'm doing nothing and I don't know how to start, life feels really difficult. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, well, when things were feeling good, I was doing a lot of things. Yeah. Like wake up, do my habits, hit the gym, get the kids to school. I feel like super dad, right? And like I'm crushing it at life, but I'm handling a lot. But then when that momentum's not there and you're doing nothing, and it's hard to even just like make that first step. Yeah. That's when life is difficult. Yeah. And you don't really have the foreknowledge of like, this is the next step I'm going to take. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's almost constant like, am I even on the right staircase right now? Ooh, you know? That is difficult. I think you're talking about momentum. Once you get some momentum going in the kind of rhythm of life, a lot of people adapt to the rhythm of college life. 2 jobs, full-time schedule. It takes a minute to adapt to that. Uh-huh. And once you kind of get yourself going, I think it's a little bit easier. But getting your momentum started, and when you don't have certainty that this is the direction I want to go, or even this is the best way to go about it, that's pretty paralyzing, right? Yeah. I almost feel like I have friends that are in like doctor programs or like dentist programs or nursing programs, and like they just know, like they're like, oh yep, for the next 4 years this is what I'm doing, right? And it's a little stressful, but like even within that stress there's some peace, right? Because they just know, they know that this is the staircase I'm on, these are the steps I'm taking. Yeah. And like I feel like my path is a little bit more subjective than concrete. Yeah. Which is like, it's okay, but you can see how some certainty would make things a little bit easier. Certainty would make things a lot better mentally. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, you're in college. What are you in college for? What's the plan? How did you end up in college? Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. I left church and I met somebody who owned a barber. He came to our church and he owned the barber shop right next door. Got it. And so the next day I went and got my hair cut, barbershop, they're in there talking trash and just, it's a fun time, but it's a mixture of like talking trash and then like philosophizing.
Deep stuff.
You know what I mean? Like it's a mixture, right?
And it does,
It's so good. And so the owner of the barbershop said he was going to go back to college and get his like business degree, because he was like, I don't know how to run the book, my own books here, and it's like I'm making money, but I don't know how to manage it.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, okay, that's cool. He's like, oh, I'm doing this thing called Reconnect program, where pretty much I get to go to school for free. I was like, school for free?
Yeah, it's like a scholarship.
Yeah. And I have never thought about myself in college before that moment.
Okay.
But I was like, free college, like maybe I could do that. And I had this is like year into my sobriety, right? And year into even me thinking I can handle life on life's term, as they say in like NA. So I went home that night and I was like, that's interesting. School for free. And I was like, I'm not going to fill out those papers. Yeah. I'd never been the one to like, here's this cool idea, but I never like followed through on it. So I was still identifying with this person who doesn't follow through. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I just sat down for like 3 hours and I did all the paperwork.
Wow.
Just right there. Cause I was like, no, I'm not going to be this person anymore who doesn't seize opportunities.
Yeah.
So I just sat down and I did it. 2 days later, this girl from LCC calls me and she was like, hey, your all your stuff went through and like you're going to be starting in the summer. But you didn't pick a major. This is how far removed from my mind being a student was. Yeah. The question, and I know you're going to laugh here. I was like, what's a major?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea, bro.
Isn't that a rank in the Army?
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, can you just list off a few? And she must have been in the C's.
Okay.
She was like, she said something, child development, communication, something else with the C. And then I was like, communication.
Go back, communication.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah. Let's try that.
Yeah.
And I just rolled with it. And I really haven't gave it too much thought since I've been in it. I was just like, okay, I'm here. I'm doing this. But it has been something you mentioned, begin with the end in mind. Yeah. That's one of the first books I read was Think and Grow Rich and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was such a transformational book for me because it made me think about, what my identity was. Yeah. What are the roles I play? What are the roles? What do I want those roles to become? And like, how can I not just work hard, but actually strategize to become what I want to be? And that doesn't mean just like having money. One of the questions they ask you in the book is like, okay, imagine you're at your funeral and your brother's coming up to speak about you. Like, what do you want him to say? Nice. Yeah. Yep. And I was like, whoa. Like, yeah. And so it has you break down your future into these different components. What do you want to mean to your family? What do you want to mean to your professional life and to your community at large or whatever? Yeah. And so while I was starting school, I was still like reading books. I heard this quote. It said, "Don't let your school get in the way of your education." Ooh. And since I've been in school, that's so...
Say more about that. What does that mean?
So
I think I get it, but just for...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is this programming that takes place in college, right? Yep. And so like, hey, you have to follow this exact routine of curriculum and to have like this... everybody that graduates is going to have these ideas in their heads or they're going to have followed this logic, right? But like, education is more of like, that's knowledge, right? The school is knowledge. Right. But education, I think what that quote means is like wisdom and understanding. You have those things, then you really know how to operate in the malleable space of reality that is like, how do I actually exist in this place and become symbiotic with the people around me, right? So I've learned more from books, like just my own reading, than I have in college. That's cool. And that's just I mean, it just is what it is. But
Yeah. I think a lot of people get hung up on the frustration of the conformity of a curriculum. I have to go to this class and do this assignment, and these aren't even in my major, but I have to get a humanities, I have to get a science, I have to do math, and it's like, yeah, don't let school be the enemy of an education.
Yeah.
Right? It is not. It is a system within which you can become educated, right? But it's a lot of that's on you and what you bring to it, as you say, and kind of your attitude as you come to it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people have some sort of resentment to learning after coming out of school. You know,
Yep.
like I have friends who have like master's degrees, and I like talk to them about books, and they'll be like, "I hate reading.
I don't ever want to read again." Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, you have a master's degree. I figured you had like a library and like a smoke pipe. You know what I mean? Like a robe. You know what I mean? Like
you're just sitting around reading academic papers all the time.
Yeah, I
right?
thought as soon as you graduated, you got a smoke pipe and a robe and like a bookshelf.
Yeah,
I thought that's what comes with
it.
a master's degree.
Right.
But they just have like a resentment towards learning and like reading and like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I never want that. Like I want to learn forever.
Yeah.
I just want to learn forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This brings me to another concept I was thinking about. When I think about school, I think it has two main functions. One is translation. The other is transformation. Translation and transformation, I think, is what I hope is happening in classrooms, which translation, I think of it this way, like the academic at the front of the room, the professor, is communicating information to you from a bunch of scholars. Things we've learned, they're translating all the science and the data and everything we've learned up to this point, whether it's a biology class or a communication class. We're saying, here's what we've learned about communication. Let me help you understand that. So they're translating all the science and the art of that. When you get that information, you need to load that into your head. But for me, you need to become a different person as a result of that. You need to transform. It's one thing to understand communication better. It's another thing to be able to be a better communicator.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you're after, right? You want your education to be transformative. And when you say, I want to be a lifelong learner, what I hear is like, I want to be lifelong transforming.
Yeah. Yeah. Lifelong transforming. That's
growing.
Yeah. Constantly transforming, renewing the mind. So like, talk about communicate. So I've take 3 or 4 communication classes in a row.
Yeah.
And you know, I've enjoyed the experience, but I've also like, you can't look at these concepts of communication and just ponder them and become a better communicator. Right. I emceed an event 2 weeks ago for my job. Okay. Right. Like we had this community event. Nice. They asked me to be the MC. I've never been an MC before. And
you're like, I'll do that.
I'll do it. Yeah. Just like, that's me. Like I lean into the discomfort of things that I think will transform me. Right.
Yeah.
And that was such a transformational endeavor for me. Especially like, so I had all these notes written out, and I was like going off these notes, and then all of a sudden I was like, I can't do these notes anymore. It's making me like stiff. It's making me like rigid, and I'm not paying attention to what's going on. And as soon as I like made the decision, break away from the notes, I all of a sudden became more submerged into the experience and reflected that through my words. And I was way more a part of it. It was way more relevant. Yeah. And it was so, that was like the real education. It's like I was learning in that moment. Yeah. Right. And that's like a part of me that'll never, and now I have the confidence that I have the competence to, you know, show up without notes and just understand the event and be able to adapt to it and provide what's needed, you know, verbally to the experience. Yeah. And like, that was real education for me. I wouldn't have been able to do that in like a classroom. Yeah. Or I mean, maybe some classes, like, I mean, you just spoke like, you know, hopefully you know, some classes are transformational and not just translational. Right.
Yeah. I think we need to give students the opportunity to show that they've learned the material. I really do. I think we should give tests and quizzes and be like, show me that you've learned the data set that we're trying to hand on to you. But I think hopefully classes give students opportunity to show their transformation, which for me, and I was terrified of doing this stuff in school, was like, go up and give a speech in front of your class about, hey, I learned something about positive psychology. I'm going to tell you what that is for the next 5 or 10 minutes. Or I'm going to work in a small group and we're going to have to come up with a project and give it to the professor, or we're gonna have to give it to the, show it to the class. That creative side, which is kind of what you're describing as emceeing. You did all this preparation, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And all these notes. And then by the time you were done with all that, you were like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I've already changed as a result of having done that. Now I can show up and be creative and in the moment.
Yeah.
And be Steven.
Yeah.
And not Steven's notes.
Exactly. Yeah. And being creative from like what I've learned already.
Yeah.
Something about creation that just creating, first of all, makes time disappear.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's so interesting because I deem myself as having a bad memory, right?
Okay.
But I can remember over 16,000 words of my poetry in my songs.
Wow.
Right? And it's what is that?
You don't have a bad memory.
No, but for most things.
Yeah, I hear
but
what you're saying.
What is this okay, I enter into this. This is what I'm trying to say. I enter into this place that seems outside of reality.
Yeah, outside of time.
Yeah, outside of time.
Yeah.
And this is the creative process, right?
The zone.
The zone, the flow state.
The flow state, yep.
And then whatever my brain is producing, or pulling out from within, I don't forget those things.
Yeah.
And that's learned because it wasn't in my brain prior. So here I okay, let's say I do a study session, same amount of time, hour, right?
Yep.
I could do this study session, and if I take a quiz right afterwards, I could probably answer the quiz, which I try to do so that I don't do it later. So
that's called cramming. It works a little bit. Yeah.
For the short term.
It does, yeah.
But you ask me these things a week later, it's I'm not, I didn't enter into it in this same way, but then I go into I play a beat and I write for 20, 25 minutes or 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
I will never forget those lyrics.
Yeah.
Ever. It's now ingrained into my brain.
Yeah.
What is that?
That is something to investigate.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, as you're saying that, I'm thinking you have this skill set in one area of your life, writing music, and being able to recall that and perform that, which I think you've performed your spoken word and your music before, and you can do it. You can recall it and do it. And so the other side of this is, as a student, can you recall and perform when needed in that domain too? And how do we cross that bridge?
Yeah.
How do you get into a flow state as a student? And I think it gets easier the further we go in college, right? I went through a master's degree, obviously in counseling, loved it. The further I got into my program, the more I came, in love with the material I was learning. So I learned it much easier.
Yeah.
And I was excited about learning it, and I would read stuff that wasn't required. Yeah. I was at that stage.
I want to be there.
You're going to get there. Yeah.
But
there. In the beginning, I'm man, I just don't care about this subject very much. It's hard for me to care enough to learn it.
Yeah.
So, but at the end, what I convinced myself was, I care enough because I got to get that degree. Yeah. I got to graduate so I can get to the next thing and get to the next thing. So sometimes school is a little bit of a means to an end, and you apply all your skills so you can make it there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it feels like right now.
So we got a few minutes left. What are your tips for mental health? Maintaining balance. You've already come on and very vulnerably shared dude, I'm a recovery coach. I help people kind of get their lives afloat.
Yeah.
And I'm not really, I'm bailing water out of my own ship right now.
Doesn't make sense to me.
As a counselor, trust me, we don't have our stuff squared away, even though we got books on how to square everything away.
Yeah.
And we got a head full of it. But what are some things tips you could recommend to students even, or just anybody listening? This is how you start.
Such a good question. And that's been that's my education, right?
Yeah.
That's the real education. How can I be okay in my head?
Yeah.
Right? No education matters as much as that.
Yeah.
If you can figure out how to be okay in your head, you won already. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't need much,
Yep.
So one thing is focus. I feel like focus, and what I mean by that is we're constantly being pulled back and forth, right? Between our phones, there's just so much, right? The TVs, the radio, everything is pulling our attention. And so I don't really know exactly what that's doing, but it's not making us okay in our head.
Got it.
And so, and it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like what's the next step I take, right? Or like, oh, I know the next step I'm taking, it's this. And like, you're not able to have the awareness in your head if you can't focus, right? So for me, journaling is huge, huge. And not just journaling like, this is what I did today, right? It's intentional creation of a certain type of mindset. Gratitude usually, right? It's like, I start off my journals, I'd be like, hi, friend. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me, you know? And I've created a friendship with myself, a relationship with myself. And in doing that consistently, 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, you know, just write about like what you like about life. Write about a problem and how you are confident that you're going to solve it. Even if you don't have the information now, you will find it, you know? And so I think that creates like faith, you know, which is another like huge pillar, is like being able to not just think that we're on a floating rock of meaninglessness, you know, because that's not going to end into a good place mentally. So being able to establish some faith about reality just being good, you know, which it can't.
And life can be good.
Life can be good, because you can't, I don't think that you can have meaninglessness and deem reality as good. I don't think that you can have those two mindsets. So trying to steer away from meaninglessness, find some concrete meaning. So I think another bedrock for me is exercise. Like getting the heart pumping, you know, and trying to do that early in the morning, getting that out the way so that you can experience, I call it the other side of the veil. So like, I'll be like, man, why do I feel like, you know, just crap right now? And then I exercise and it's like the veil's lifted and all of a sudden everything's bright. And I'm like, well, what? It didn't feel like this a minute ago. So I really think, you know, being able to be aware of your thoughts and having, because then you can have a relationship with yourself and you can be conscious of the things that are being said in your head. Because I still say, like, even though I'm a friend of mine, like I'm my friend.
You're a friend to yourself,
I still say things to myself that are like, I wish I wouldn't have said that. But because I'm aware, I can be like, hey, man, like, don't talk to me like that.
We have this. Well, so it's cool. You're recommending two things, and we'll wrap the show up here, which is get into your head a little bit further intentionally with gratitude, right? Spend some time thinking through your thoughts. Get some objectivity around your thoughts. See what you're thinking. Write it out on paper. Get some space and some distance so you can look at it. And then the other thing is get out of your head, get into your body. Start moving your body around, and your emotional state and your cognitive state will change if you change your physical state, because you're a mind body. You're not one or the other. You're not switching back and forth. You're both. As best as we understand it, you're a mind body. So I love this, advice around what we call kind of existential ideas, like what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? How do I see myself? What's meaningful to me? And I would just encourage people who are listening, hey, if you're a currently enrolled student at LCC and you want to learn more about this identity and purpose, or how to manage your emotions and feelings and stuff like that, you can come to the LCC Counseling Center. We have free licensed professional counselors there. You can learn more at lcc.edu/counseling. And I invite you to look into that and to pursue your own mental health as well as you can. I'd like to thank you, Stephen, for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a great day, man.
You too, brother.